Let's look at some practical issues. The patron and responsibility. Patronage systems view responsibility differently than a contractual relationship. In a patronage system, a patron, or we can say the leader of an organization, takes responsibility for the staff, and the leader will seek to solve the staff's problems. In return, the staff willingly carry out the vision and plans of the leader and bring them honor that way. Any risk is carried by the leader, while the staff remain loyal to the organization. The anthropologist Paul Hebert writes, "The patron, like a parent, is totally responsible for the welfare of the clients." Now, in a society where there is economic disparity, a client needs the patron to guide and protect because it's dangerous out there. We've mentioned this before. And it becomes an honor for the patron to take responsibility. Leaders from individualist societies can make too much of personal responsibility, choice, and decision-making for people, for their staff from communal and patron-client cultures. For example, a director can easily tell a staff member, whatever you decide, it's your choice. But the staff may be afraid to step out on their own because they have no recourse if they fail. Furthermore, the staff sees themselves in the cycle of grace, receiving and then returning gratitude. So why should they interrupt this flow by going out on their own? It would break the cycle of grace. In traditional contexts, some directors, village chiefs, or in-charge personalities, local pastors, they can easily use their resources, financial, material, or other types of influence, and provide goods to their people around them, but they can do so for self-serving purposes, to actually benefit themselves rather than empowering the needy. A word of caution to donors, Western directors, and service providers. Any word of advice you offer to a client or a donee can be seen as giving directions, and the recipient acts upon your advice or your guidance because they are loyal and devoted to you. However, when there are negative consequences because of the advice you have given, then you as the advisor or the provider are held responsible. Here's an example that I experienced many years ago. I encouraged a refugee family to return to their home country, and they did so, though I felt it had been a very casual suggestion, and I totally forgot about it. Now, this couple had had a sponsorship case, but when the immigration officer realized that they had returned to their home country, they were refused sponsorship because, they weren't refugees anymore. And then what happened? I was held responsible for the fact that they got a refusal from the immigration department. Well, it took some years and we were able to work through that. So we often hear this, make your own decision. This leads to an interesting conundrum. It's easy to say to a staff member who comes from a communal culture, just make your own decision. An independent-oriented leader sees decision-making and taking responsibility as key elements in moving towards maturity. Note, for example, refugees from a communal society, they work for a Western NGO in Asia. And for the refugee, it's not just a job. It's not just an employer-employee contract, but they sense a deep mutual relationship, though they're not equal. And now the refugee resettles in the West. The NGO then communicates to the person, you're on your own now. If you want to work with us, great, but you need to decide yourself. And then you will need to raise your own support from now on, as the rest of us do. It really is your decision if you would like to stay with our organization or if you'd like to move on. But since this client comes from a strong patron-client culture, they feel their patrons are abandoning them. So how can they, as vulnerable clients, step out on their own? How can they decide if they have little awareness of the structures and guarantees and support around them? So I ask myself, why does a client not want to make a decision on their own or take initiative and responsibility? Here are some reasons. It's easier and safer to be told what to do. If I participate in planning and implementation, then I will need to shoulder responsibility. A client can have great ideas, but to initiate them means that the client then takes charge and ensures that they are implemented, and then the client is also held accountable. And the client simply cannot afford to take the risk of failure. The client or the staff want to be sure there's a support system around them. So it's better to follow the ways of the patron. And finally, if the staff or the client would make the decision and step out on their own, they would be dishonoring the patron who has the moral responsibility to care for the clients and the staff. So how can a patron help the client develop this capacity to make decisions? To simply promise, I'll support you, whatever you decide, sounds noble, but it can ring hollow from the other side. Rather, walk through the decision process with the staff. Help them see the pros and cons of both ways. What are the consequences of the different options that are before the client? Ask the client how they might advise someone else in the same situation. So let's just look briefly at development and patronage. If you work in community development projects in a society used to patron-client relationships, you may face various challenges. The Western NGO is seen as a patron for two different groups: the local staff that work with the NGO, as well as the local beneficiaries of the NGO projects. So the local staff member says to the NGO director, "You're the boss. I'm at your service. Whatever you command." I've heard that said to me numerous times. But at the same time, an experienced local staff then communicates to new employees or maybe to their family or to other beneficiaries. When they ask about NGO services, "Don't worry. That NGO, they'll take care of us. They're good people." And so the staff overpromises what the NGO can provide. Can the NGO fulfill all these expectations? So this requires ongoing training with local staff as to what the NGO as a patron can and cannot do. Secondly, the NGO may also face opposition from local traditional leadership. Here's an example. A local commander, a tribal chief, or a landlord who manipulates his own people to enhance his own power base, he may fear that he will lose his clients or his supporters if the local people are empowered by a development project, because development decreases the power of the patron and frees people from dependence. But ironically, sometimes the clients or the beneficiaries don't want development. Development means to take more responsibilities, and people fear they will lose the patrons or the tribal chief's support in the process. So how can community development projects move the community towards responsibility and ownership? Or as we've been saying, move people towards interdependence rather than just being on their own? This will require careful understanding of the local patronage system, which may be corrupt and may have ruined the dignity of the local people. I believe careful and sensitive local personal empowerment and ownership can be a key in transforming patronage in the community. As is said, you own what you help to create. A patron should work alongside the beneficiaries to help them create their own solutions. Here, the challenge for an international organization is to create an environment where staff take initiative step by step, take responsibility, and gradually gain a sense of ownership for what they do. Let's go through this next activity, patrons and clients, and then for the conclusion of this lesson, watch this video clip which gives a great summary of patron-client relationships in an honor-shame culture.